Order. Senator Wong, questions without notice.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Cormann, and I refer to the national accounts released today. Can the Minister confirm Australia has plunged into the worst recession since the Great Depression almost a century ago?
The Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Today is a very hard day for Australia. And many Australians have gone through a very difficult period over the last 6 or 7 months as a result of a once-in-a-century global pandemic. The coronavirus pandemic has hit economies around the world very hard. It has hit the Australian economy very hard, and it has had a devastating impact on the livelihoods of too many Australians. And I'm disappointed that the flavour of the interjections from the opposition again demonstrates the level of political sneering that, quite frankly, completely. I mean, the Labor Party again tries to suggest that there's no context to what is happening here. We are where we are as a direct result of the coronavirus pandemic. We have today entered into the COVID-19 recession. That is a very sad day for Australia, but that is the reality of it. And I know that the Labor Party doesn't want to hear this. As bad as things are for Australia, we went into this period in a stronger position than others. We have gone through this period in a stronger position than others, and the impact on our economy is much less severe than what it has been in other parts of the world. The United Kingdom has experienced a contraction of more than 20% in one quarter. More than 20%.
Order, Senator
Again,
Ayres.
it's the sort of inconvenient truth that the Labor Party is not interested in. The Labor Party just wants to come into this chamber, pursue a biased political strategy, using this tragedy, which is caused by an external event that is beyond our control, as a way to score party political points. You should be ashamed of yourself. You should be absolutely ashamed of yourself. The Australian people can see what you're doing. We know why we're here. The Australian people know why we're here, and we know what we need to do to continue to guide Australia out of this crisis.
Has expired. Senator Wong, a supplementary question.
National accounts released today show that the economy has contracted by 7%. Can the Minister confirm this is the worst quarterly result since records began, plunging Australia into the first recession in 3 decades and ending 29 years of continuous economic growth?
Senator Cormann.
Yes.
Senator Wong, a final supplementary question.
With the worst recession since the Great Depression almost a century ago and the worst quarterly contraction since records began, can the Minister explain why the government has no plan for jobs and no plan for economic recovery?
Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr President. That is a ridiculous proposition, and I completely and utterly reject the premise of the question.
Watt and
I completely and utterly reject the premise of the question. As soon as this crisis hit, our government not only made decisions to protect the health of our fellow Australians, we also made decisions to support the economy, to support jobs. We have provided unprecedented levels of crisis-level fiscal support into the economy, trying to save as many businesses as possible, making sure that as many businesses as possible survive through this period, that as many jobs as possible are saved through this period, and indeed to ensure that as many Australians as possible remain connected to their employer. And of course we are making decisions to encourage businesses to invest in their future success through our tax settings and
Senator Watt,
through our skills agenda, and indeed Senator Cash is of course a very effective minister pursuing our skills and training agenda.
Senator Cormann, time for the answer has expired. Senator Brockman.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is also to the Minister for Finance, Senator Cormann. Can the minister further update the Senate on the economic challenges facing Australia as a result of the global coronavirus pandemic?
The Minister for Finance, Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Mr President, the national accounts released today show what Australians already knew. Our economy has been hit hard, very hard, by the COVID-19 pandemic. The Australian economy contracted by 7% in the June quarter, which is indeed the largest quarterly fall in real GDP on record since records were kept. This was driven by large drops in household consumption, dwelling investment and business investment. Mr President, the largest contributors to the decline in consumption were hotels, cafes and restaurants, which were down 56.1%, and transport services, which were down 85.9%, a staggering 85.9%. But, Mr. President, the numbers today show that Australia is performing comparatively well when compared to other countries around the world facing precisely the same challenge. The IMF is expecting that 157 economies will contract this year, with unprecedented falls in many. COVID-19 has been a wrecking ball through the global economy. The impact in the June quarter has been staggering, with GDP falling by 20.4% in the UK, 13.8% in France, 11.5% in Canada and 9.1% in the United States. Mr. President, the decisions our government made prior to this crisis improved our budget position by more than $250 billion over the 10 years to 22-23. That put us on a better, more sustainable fiscal trajectory for the future as we went into this crisis, and has enabled us to provide record levels of crisis-level support into the economy, to business and to working families. If we had not done what we have done in our first 6 years in government, we would have had less fiscal capacity to respond, and our economy would have been less resilient, and today our economy would have been weaker. It is because we repaired Labor's mess during our first 6 years in government that Australia is in a better position today than we otherwise would have been.
Senator Cormann. Order on my left. Order. I will call Senator Brockman when I can hear him. Order. Senator Wong. Senator Brockman, a supplementary question.
Mr. President, Minister, can you inform the Senate how the government's historic level of support is helping Australians on our road to economic recovery?
Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I thank Senator Brockman for that question. Mr. President, as I've said, we came into this crisis in a stronger, more resilient position as a result of the budget repair work done by our government during our first 6 years in government. That allowed us to commit to $314 billion worth of support for the Australian economy, nearly 16% of GDP. Nearly 16% of GDP. According to Treasury, that support has helped save 700,000 jobs. 700,000 jobs.
Watt.
The unemployment rate would have been around
Senator
5% higher
Senator
than it is today.
Senator Birmingham and Senator Watt. Before I call Senator Wong, I will insist on both of you being quiet. Senator Wong, on a point of order.
He did. I heard what he called him. I'd ask him to withdraw.
I'm afraid I did not. There was so much. There was order, Senator Wong, please. There was complete disorder across the chamber. I was struggling to hear Senator Cormann. Order. I'm going to ask you, Senator McGrath, to withdraw that. Senator. I did not hear it. I can't attest to it. What is conventional in these opportunities is if a senator wishes to withdraw a comment, they may, but I cannot order a withdrawal for something I did not hear. I'm going to ask Senator McGrath to withdraw the comment he made.
I withdraw.
I heard that one. Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Senator Birmingham is seeking a call. Sorry,
President, I stand by the question asking which planet Senator Watt's been on all year, but if I said that, I withdraw it.
Thank you. Senator Cormann, please continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I've got to say that's a very good point by Senator Birmingham, that question that is just raised, because but Senator Watt is not. He's certainly not Robinson Crusoe, because everyone on that island that is called the Labor Party these days is in complete denial of what is actually happening on planet Earth. I mean, here is a message from
Order,
planet
Senator
Earth.
Cormann. Time for the answer has expired. I'll call Senator Brockman when there's silence. Senator Brockman, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I thank the minister for that answer. Minister, can you inform the Senate how the government is giving employers the flexibility they need to keep workers employed while they fight back from this economic shock?
Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much. And this is, of course, another important part of our plan to protect jobs during this pandemic. Mr. President, the temporary JobKeeper provisions in the Fair Work Act have provided essential flexibility that has been vital for struggling businesses to survive the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic and keep their employees in jobs. It allows employers receiving the wage subsidy to make key changes to their operations. These include adjusted employee work hours, altering duties or the location of work. While this support will be essential for businesses that remain eligible for JobKeeper, greater workplace flexibility will also be vitally important for many businesses that no longer qualify for JobKeeper post-September. This will allow those businesses to keep as many of their employees as possible as they continue to recover from the worst of the crisis. And of course, again, the Labor Party is not interested in everything that is being done to protect jobs. They just want to pursue base political attacks from a different
Senator
planet.
Cormann, time for the answers expired. Senator Gallagher.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Cormann. Senator Cormann, today the National Accounts confirmed that we're in the deepest recession since the Great Depression almost a century ago. We've recorded the worst quarterly contraction of 7% since records began. Isn't this the worst time for the Prime Minister to be cutting JobKeeper, cutting JobSeeker, cutting wages and freezing the pension?
The Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Well, Senator Gallagher is mixing up a whole range of different things here. Let me just say,
Senator
when it comes to the pension will continue to rise in line with inflation. In line with inflation. In line with inflation. We have not made any decisions whatsoever. We have not made any decisions whatsoever to change the indexation arrangements for the pension. And I think that question, the way you're framing it and the way you seek to scare vulnerable Australians, is very dishonest indeed. When it comes to JobKeeper, of course we need to phase out of these historically unprecedented transitional crisis-level support arrangements. That is what none other than Mr Albanese used to say in May, June, July. I mean, he was on the record saying we've got to phase out this historically unprecedented level of support. He's right, because we need to allow the economy to adjust so that it can get into the new normal and start growing again from the new baseline. That is what we need to do, Mr President. Quite frankly, we were hit with a crisis. We needed to pause and put in place all of the appropriate support mechanisms. But now, moving forward, we've got to allow the economy to transition out of the crisis into the new normal. And for those businesses which have the opportunity to be successful, viable and profitable into the future, to have the best possible opportunity to succeed, that is why we are pursuing, again, our pro-growth agenda, which the Australian people voted for before the last election. That is why we're providing tax incentives to business to encourage them to invest more in their future success, so that growing businesses will hire more Australians. That's why we're pursuing an ambitious free trade agenda, giving our exporting businesses better access to markets around the world, lower prices, lower electricity prices, better skills and training, and indeed less regulation, faster approvals for our projects, so that we can ensure we get more projects and more jobs off the ground. I mean, these are all the things that we are doing and will continue to do to create more jobs and better opportunities.
Senator Cormann. Senator Gallagher, a supplementary question.
The national accounts show that the household spending levels collapsed in the June quarter, demonstrating their lack of confidence in the economy. Why is the government reducing support to households now, at a time when they clearly require it?
Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much. So, in one of my earlier answers, I pointed out that consumption levels had dropped, in particular in cafes, restaurants, travel. Now, a message from Planet Earth again. You know, governments around Australia imposed restrictions. Restaurants were not allowed to open. Restaurants were not allowed to open. Cafes were not allowed to open. Planes were not allowed to fly. I mean, what do you expect would happen in that context? What do you expect would happen in that context? Honestly, even on Planet Mars, people would understand that, I think. Even on Planet Mars, they would understand that when you have a global pandemic that requires restrictions and which prohibits restaurants from opening, cafes from opening, planes to fly, well, then
Senator
that will have an impact on the consumption in relation to those areas. I mean, of course, that is absolutely logical. The only people that don't seem to understand the context of the global COVID-19 pandemic is the Australian Labor Party.
Senator Gallagher, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. I do have a...
Order. Senator Wong, I'd like to hear Senator Gallagher's question.
I do have a supplementary. Thank you, Mr President. Won't the government's decision this week to cut JobKeeper, cut JobSeeker, cut wages, freeze the pension, make the worst recession in almost a century even deeper and even longer than it needs to be?
Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr President. So, I mean, we now have Senator Gallagher criticising legislation she voted for. Legislation she voted for. So here we are.
Senator Keneally, Senator Wong's on his feet on a point of order.
Mr President, I know this minister doesn't want to answer the question. He has continued to talk about the opposition.
Order. Can I hear the point of order?
You're reducing
Well,
it, Dan.
The senator asked a question about the minister's decision this week. If he wants to talk about Senator Gallagher and her voting record, there's plenty of other opportunities for him to do so. But he was asked a direct question on this, and I asked him to return to the question.
Order. Order. Oh, we won't get through many questions if this gets up. Okay. Order. I mean, this is time that the opposition. We'll just sit here and waste time. I'll rule. I don't think this is. We're on broadcast. I don't think this is a particularly good example for the Senate. Order. On the point of order, the question was very broad. The minister was 8 seconds in. The point raised by Senator Wong and interjections supporting Senator Wong were matters for debate. In my view, I cannot rule the minister is being directly relevant, particularly as he was 8 seconds in. Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We stand by the legislation that we put to the Senate and which the Labor Party supported.
Order.
And we absolutely stand by the decisions that we have made. And
Order.
Senator Wong is actually not interested in answers. She's just interested in disorderly interjecting.
Senator Wong, please. I need to be able to hear Senator Cormann. Senator Cormann.
So, Mr. President, we will continue to implement our plan for the strongest possible economic and jobs recovery, the strongest possible economic and jobs recovery, and phasing out the level of JobKeeper wage subsidy as the economy recovers. Essentially, at the end of a 12-month period of historically unprecedented support is part of that. We need to allow businesses to adjust. We need to allow the economy to adjust so that we can maximise the strength of the recovery on the other side.
Senator Faruqi. Order. Order. Can I please hear Senator Faruqi?
Thank you, Mr. President. My question without notice is to the Minister representing the Minister for Education. Minister, happy Early Childhood Educators Day, but perhaps not so happy for the educators. The United Workers' Union has come to Parliament today to meet with the Education Minister and deliver a petition of more than 30,000 signatures. The petition calls for the federal government to provide a wage guarantee to workers in early childhood education and care throughout COVID-19. The union says that the employment guarantee provided by the government doesn't prevent part-time staff and casuals from facing drastic cuts in hours. The vast majority of the sector is part-time or casual. They are among the lowest paid workers in Australia. Why won't the government commit to a wage guarantee for our critical early childhood educators and carers?
The Minister representing the Minister for Education, Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr. President. I thank Senator Faruqi for her question, and I do acknowledge that early childhood education providers, carers, educators across the country provide an essential and very important service to many, many families and an important and essential educational opportunity and benefit to many young Australians. My own children received outstanding care and early childhood education from wonderful carers, and I'm sure that is the case for many others in this chamber. And we acknowledge their hard work, the care they provide and the foundational start that they give to young Australians in terms of their education and well-being. It's why our government has been pleased to expand opportunity and access for families to be able to reach early childhood education and care services, and that we see record numbers of children and families accessing those services as we entered the pandemic this year. We value the work of those carers who, of course, have their wages determined through standard industrial relations processes, as indeed do all Australians as part of the award system there. But increasingly we have pleasingly seen the number of children accessing the valuable care services there grow, increasing some 1.8% last year to 1,339,970 over that period of time. number of families increasing as well. And that growth is a testament to the fact that under our government, pre-pandemic, our childhood education reforms had provided for families to be able to access care with support from the government for those who needed the most hours of support, getting the most amount of hours subsidised care, for those earning the least, getting the greatest rate of subsidy under our reforms, and that helped drive more families into a system to receive such care.
Senator Faruqi, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Minister, we are seeing growing enthusiastic support across our community for universally available early learning. Just this week, the Sex Discrimination Commissioner identified an overhaul of childcare as a key priority for women's equality. And research from the ANU and Grattan Institute has shown the huge benefits of greater public investment in early learning. When will the government admit that the current system is broken and commit to fee-free, well-funded early learning for all families?
Order. Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr. President. Well, we won't admit that because we don't agree that's the case. In fact, our belief is that our reforms have strengthened the current system. Our reforms saw investment grow, investment forecast to be around $9 billion a year in relation to the Australian government's support for funding early childhood education and care services, growing to $10 billion a year over the next few years. And this is a significant rate of growth in expenditure in these areas. And in the growth of expenditure, what we have done is make sure that we target that expenditure, so that, as I said before, under the reforms our government enacted, families who can least afford care receive the greatest level of subsidy and support to access that care. Indeed, the most vulnerable families receive an entire subsidy. All fees are paid and covered in those circumstances. And those working the longest hours receive the greatest entitlement to subsidy, whilst guaranteed hours are there for children in relation to their preschool access.
Senator Faruqi, a final supplementary question.
Mr. President, Minister, the Thrive by 5 campaign for universal access to early learning launched this week, with everyone from Michelle O'Neill and Jay Weatherill to Julie Bishop and Nicola Forrest saying universal early learning is a great idea. Why is the government dragging its heels and refusing again and again to commit to making our childcare system universally accessible?
Senator Birmingham.
Well, Mr. President, our childcare system is universally accessible. It is universally accessible on a range of levels. Firstly, in terms of the provision of preschool opportunity for children, where our government has continuously worked with the states and territories to ensure that there is universal access and right to attend preschool services. And not only that, but we continue to try to work with the states and territories to better benchmark attendance at those preschool services. Far too often, the reports we get back are about enrolment in preschool, but fail to address the gap in attendance, where often the most vulnerable children who will most benefit from attendance are the ones least likely to be attending. And the work that our government has sought to do has been to engage states and territories to try to ensure the funding we provide for the delivery of those preschool services gets to the children who need it most and delivers them the support that they deserve in terms of being at childcare, being at preschool and getting that educational opportunity that they will benefit from.
Senator McGrath.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is to the Minister for Employment, Skills, Small and Family Business, Senator Cash. Can the minister update the Senate on how the Morrison government's record economic response of over $300 billion to the COVID-19 pandemic is keeping small businesses in business and their employees in work through the economic effects of the pandemic?
The Minister for Employment, Skills, Small and Family Business, Senator Cash.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I thank Senator McGrath for the question. And, Mr. President, as the Minister for Finance has stated, COVID-19, a global pandemic, has had a devastating impact on not only the global economy but, of course, the Australian economy. When a government has to shut down parts of the economy, it is going to have a detrimental effect, and we know that it has had a devastating effect on many small and family businesses around Australia. But that is why the government took decisive action and continues to take decisive action to respond to both the health aspects of the pandemic but, of course, the economic aspects. And in terms of our support for small and family businesses, they are the engine room of the Australian economy. They support, in particular, rural and regional economies around Australia, and that is why we are investing a record stimulus of in excess of $300 billion into the economy to ensure that we can support them. Mr. President, when you look at the support that is actually flowing through to small businesses—
Senator Cormann, on the point of order,
Thank you
what
very
I was
much.
about to say.
Interjections are always disorderly, even more so when there is total disregard to interventions by the President.
I'm going to revert to my rule of asking people to count slowly to 10 after they're called to order, particularly those who have been particularly voluble today. Senator Watt. Senator Cash, to continue.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. And
order. Senator Watt. Well, if someone has been as voluble as Senator Watt, they probably need to learn a little bit of patience. I've called him out more than anyone else today. I will call those to my right to order in a minute. But goose and gander is also when I've called Senator Watt more than a dozen times in 25 minutes, he can bite his tongue. People shouldn't bait those who are known to have short fuses either. But please, if I call you to order, at least show some respect to the chair and your colleagues by not continuing it immediately. Order across the chamber. Senator Cash.
Thank you, Mr. President. And the economic support is flowing through to small and family business around Australia. In terms of the JobKeeper payment, we know that it is supporting around 3.5 million Australians to maintain that really important connection with their employer. And certainly yesterday legislation passed this place that will ensure that that support now continues through until March next year. In terms of the cash flow boost, that is also flowing through to small and family businesses around Australia. They are now accessing over $24 billion in assistance, and that's over 785,000 businesses. That important money flowing through back to them. In terms of the apprentice wage subsidy, it's now supporting at this time over 51,200 employers, mostly small businesses around Australia, to retain almost 90,000 apprentices and trainees. Small and family businesses, they are the backbone of the Australian economy, and the Morrison government will continue to support them.
Senator McGrath, a supplementary question.
How has the government's strong record of supporting small business created the conditions for economic recovery on the other side of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Senator Cash.
Well, Mr. President, on the government side of the chamber, on the coalition side of the chamber, we understand that putting in place policies that will support small and family businesses to prosper, grow, to create more jobs for Australians is essential for a strong economy. And we've had a record of that since we were elected to government. In particular, though, fast-tracking tax relief for small and family businesses around Australia, because we know that it's their money. The more that we can give back to them, the more that they can invest back into their businesses and create more jobs for Australians. But of course, ensuring small businesses are paid on time through a range of initiatives, but in particular including the government's own payment policies. Cutting red tape for small business. Red tape is a blocker in terms of job creation, and we are absolutely committed to cutting red tape where we can, but also investing in mental health resources for small businesses. So important given the devastating impact of COVID-19 on the economy.
Senator McGrath, a final supplementary question.
How will the government's JobMaker plan support small businesses to create jobs and support their communities as the economy recovers from COVID-19?
Senator Cash.
Well, again, Mr. President, the Morrison government understands small and family businesses, the backbone of the Australian economy. We understand that we need to, and we have put in place policies that will enable them to prosper, grow and create more jobs for Australians. And in terms of our plan for economic recovery to get Australia and Australians through COVID-19, every minister, every department, they are working to put job creation at the centre of everything we do. We will continue to build on the measures that we have already implemented to help the economy and ensure that small businesses are able to create jobs. And as the Minister for Finance has stated, this includes undertaking important skills reform, ensuring that Australians are skilled in areas of the economy that are creating jobs, the important industrial relations reform that the Minister for Finance referred to, removing unnecessary red tape through deregulation, and, of course, streamlining project approvals,
Order.
a key
Senator
factor
Cass, time
in job
for the answers
creation.
expired. Senator Lambie.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is for the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Minister Cormann. Former Prime Minister Tony Abbott gets 2 taxpayer-funded staff members, a driver, an office, a private vehicle, free travel and a pension worth over $300,000 a year. Mr Abbott has accepted a role advancing the interests of a foreign nation. This is a strong probability that Mr Abbott will be employed to assist the UK negotiate trade deals that may not necessarily benefit Australia's sovereign interest. Is the Prime Minister really going to allow Australian taxpayers to pay him, pay for his office, pay for his travel, pay for his staff and pay for his car while he's working against the interests of the same Australian taxpayers that are covering his bills?
The Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr President, and I thank Senator Lambie for that question. I'm somewhat disappointed that a Labor senator felt it appropriate to say that that was a good question, because in Australia we have a great tradition in a non-partisan fashion to treat our former Prime Ministers with respect from both sides of politics, and the work expenses available to former Prime Ministers, be they Labor or Liberal, are precisely the same and organised in an entirely non-partisan fashion.
Order on my left. I'm having trouble hearing. Senator Cormann, can you please resume your seat? This is no reflection on Senator Cormann. I can't hear what he's saying. Really? When I say I can't hear a minister answering a question, the retort to the chair is he should answer the question. I'm asking to be able to hear the minister answer the question. He does not have a quiet voice, and I can't hear it. Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And despite my voice, I don't think any of my colleagues are falling asleep as I'm answering this question today. But, Mr. President, we treat our former Prime Ministers with respect, with courtesy and respect. The work expense arrangements for all of them are the same. I believe that all of them pursue alternative opportunities to contribute internationally and domestically. I don't believe that. I don't believe the information that Senator Lambie has that Mr. Abbott is paid for work that he is conducting to facilitate international trade. I don't believe he's paid for that role. I don't think it is appropriate to make the sorts of reflections that were supported by a Labor senator in this chamber, disappointingly, in relation to any of our former Prime Ministers.
Senator Lambie, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Whether he was paid or not, I was kicked out of the Senate in 2017 under Section 44 for dual citizenship. The thinking has always been that dual citizens have dual allegiance to Australia and to another country. If another country was paying me to promote their interests, potentially over the interests of Australia, would that be considered a dual allegiance? And if so, would I, like Mr Abbott, still be entitled to an annual salary from the taxpayer?
Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Firstly, Mr. Abbott is no longer a member of the Australian Parliament, so the constitutional arrangements around eligibility for federal members of Parliament do not apply to Mr. Abbott. Mr. Abbott, like any former member of Parliament, any former Prime Minister under the old parliamentary pension arrangements, obviously qualifies for the arrangements that have been in place for all on the same basis. I think it's entirely inappropriate to make the suggestions that are being made here. I think it is deeply personal and inappropriate. And Senator Wong, no. Well, Senator Wong, quite frankly, everyone after their leave is entitled to pursue other career opportunities, and the retirement income arrangements are the same for all.
Senator Lambie, on a point of order, Senator Lambie.
Yeah, my point of order is, could you please? What I'm asking you is, do you not think that that gives him a dual allegiance? We are paying him, yet he may be going into
Senator
trade
Lambie, please.
to come
Senator
against the
Lambie,
taxpayer.
I've allowed you to restate part of the question, but that was not a point of order. I think the minister is being directly relevant to the question as asked. Even there's a chance to debate it later. Senator Cormann.
Thank you. I answered the question directly. I mean, the analogy that Senator Lambie sought to make with her circumstance when she found herself in breach of constitutional eligibility requirements is not there, because Mr. Abbott is no longer a member of the Australian Parliament.
Senator Lambie, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. What would the Prime Minister like to say to the thousands of veterans whose compensation claims that have been denied in the courts every year, each mounting to far less than $700,000 a year, we're paying a former Prime Minister to work against Australia's national interest, have to say.
Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Well, I'm disappointed that Senator Lambie chooses to pick on one former Prime Minister. The arrangements are the same for all of our current former Prime Ministers except the most recent ones. And anyone who has, well, I mean, Senator Wong, if you are suggesting that we should change retirement income arrangements retrospectively, then please say so and move a piece of legislation along those lines.
Senator Canavan.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Resources, Water and Northern Australia, Senator Birmingham. Can the Minister outline how the recent agreement between the United States Defence Department and the Australian company Lynas to supply critical minerals from its Mount Weld mine in Western Australia will benefit Australia?
The Minister representing the Minister for Resources, Water and Northern Australia, Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr. President. I thank Senator Canavan for his question. Of course, a consistent advocate for Australia's resources industry, as the entire chamber knows. Lynas is an Australian-listed company and a great Aussie success and export success story. It is a key component of the global rare earth supply chain, and I understand supplies around 13% of global rare earth element production. Lynas owns and operates a rare earths mine in Mount Weld, West WA, and ore from Mount Weld is shipped and processed at Lynas's Advanced Materials plant in Malaysia. On 27 July 2020, Lynas announced that the US Department of Defence and Lynas had signed a contract for Phase 1 work to deliver a US-based heavy rare earths processing facility. But this, I'm pleased to say, Mr. President, is not Lynas's only facility development. Lynas is also investing around $500 million to build a processing plant in Kalgoorlie to use Mount Weld ore. Lynas is committed to using a residential workforce instead of FIFO workers, creating about 500 jobs in the construction phase and about 100 permanent roles. Lynas has a proven record in the processing of rare earth elements, and this is an important milestone in delivering more diversified global supply of heavy rare earths. Critical minerals featured again in the recent AusMin consultations held by my colleagues in Washington. This highlighted the importance of work Australia and the US are progressing to diversify critical mineral supply chains. The current COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted potential issues associated with concentrated supply chains, but we know that Australia is well placed to lead the diversification of critical mineral supply chains across the globe, as we are the leading producer of some of the world's most sought-after critical minerals, including rare earths, lithium, zirconium and titanium. These are critical minerals found in our phones, laptops, advanced technological products and, of course, across defence industries as well. That's why we're so committed to working with our partners to help diversify that supply.
Senator Canavan, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Minister, why is it important for our mining and manufacturing sectors to deliver diverse export markets?
Senator Birmingham.
Mr. President, Australia's resource industry is world-leading. The world needs our raw materials and mining, and we have been a proud, consistent and reliable supplier of such minerals right across the world in terms of support for growth of others. Australia is the world's largest producer of iron ore, of metallurgical coal, of LNG, of bauxite, and the second largest producer of gold and thermal coal. Australia also has extensive resources of nickel, copper and zinc, metals which will be the key for the future economy. We're increasingly looking and working with companies like Lynas in the value-adding to our resources. Our mining engineering technology and services industry is world-leading, exporting itself around $27 billion worth of Australian know-how and expertise to support resources projects across the globe. Australia has many robust trading partners. We export our resources to many of the world's major economies, meeting their demands, their needs, but in doing so creating jobs and opportunities for Australians and Australian businesses to grow.
Senator Canavan, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. President. How will expanding our minerals exports to nations like the United States help secure long-term, well-paying jobs in regional Australia on our road to economic recovery?
Senator Birmingham.
Mr. President, the resources industry is one of the most important industries for regional communities. Regional communities right across Australian states, including, of course, Senator Canavan's great home state of Queensland. But whether it's from Karratha to Mackay or Mount Isa across Queensland or right across the country, The resources sector underpins good jobs, reliable jobs, high-paying jobs for families, particularly those living in regional areas, and it creates economies and communities that provide further job opportunities right across regional Australia. It is, of course, also, I am pleased to say as Trade Minister, our leading export sector in terms of the contribution it makes generating income wealth for our nation, as I was saying before, not just in the extraction of resources, increasingly in areas of processing and in the use of Australian skills, know-how and capabilities that we see now assisting projects around the world and again generating more high-paying job opportunities for Australians, which will be
Senator
ever more
Birmingham.
important in our economic recovery.
We're going to the screen now. Senator Whish-Wilson.
Thank you, President. My question is also to Senator Birmingham, representing the Minister for Resources. Senator Birmingham, last week the New South Wales Liberal member for Mackellar, Jason Falinski, called on the House to oppose oil and gas drilling off the coast of Sydney and oppose the renewal of the Petroleum Exploration Permit PEP 11 licence. Is the federal government aware of the reasons the member of Mackellar doesn't want to see new oil and gas exploration off the New South Wales coastline? And does your government agree with Mr Falinski?
The Minister representing the Minister for Resources, Water and Northern Australia, Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr President, and I thank Senator Whish-Wilson for the question. I did not see Mr Falinski's comments. He's welcome to the Senate if he wishes, but he does a fine job in his electorate already. I did not see Mr Falinski's comments, so I'll take on notice any details in relation to that might be necessary to add. But what I would make the point of is that we have well-established approvals processes in relation to oil and gas exploration, where that is offshore, working through NOPSEMA, an agency that has had its expertise and credibility demonstrated time and again, most recently, in fact, by work that Australia's chief scientist did following the last election to review NOPSEMA in terms of their approvals processes and to ensure that the way in which they assess all environmental risks and other factors occurs in a most thorough manner.
Senator Whish-Wilson, a supplementary question.
Thank you, President. The permit holders of PEP 11, Asset Energy and Bounty Oil and Gas, want to go straight from seismic testing to drilling, a change of permit that would require and skip community consultation. Given the New South Wales Liberal government also opposes any extension to PEP 11 and the ultimate decision rests with the federal minister, will your government listen to your federal and state colleagues rather than a few oil and gas interests and step in to protect the New South Wales coastline from a potentially deadly oil spill and a divisive industrial development?
Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr President. I can say that what our government will do is not listen to a few interests, be they on any side of any one debate, but that we will apply the law fully, thoroughly, rigorously, as it's intended to be. We will let our independent agencies who operate under laws passed through this parliament undertake the assessments of any applications for permits, changes in permits or otherwise be conducted without any political interference, but on the basis of the merits of those cases, including, of course, the thorough and proper environmental consideration that will be given to any such applications or requests.
Senator Whish-Wilson, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, President. Minister, there's little to no scientific research on the impacts of oil and gas exploration, especially seismic testing, on our oceans and fisheries. The limited research we do have suggests significant risks with caution to be applied. Minister, do you appreciate why commercial fishing bodies and stakeholders right around the country, from Ningaloo in Western Australia to the Great Australian Bight to King Island off Tasmania and to the Otway Basin, are up in arms over new offshore oil and gas exploration acreage?
Senator Whish-Wilson. Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr President. Well, I suspect Senator Whish-Wilson exaggerates somewhat what he describes as those who are up in arms, but I again restate, as I did in the primary question in the first supplementary, that when it comes to any applications for seismic testing, offshore drilling any such activities, and they go through a very thorough assessment process, and that assessment process is designed to ensure that scientific evidence is heeded, that safeguards are met, and indeed involves opportunities for communities, stakeholders or others to have their say as part of that assessment process and to present evidence to those assessments. That's precisely what will occur in the case of any of the types of hypothetical circumstances that Senator Whish-Wilson raises. It will be done properly in a way that balances those interests, assesses the evidence, but also provides an opportunity still for job creation to occur in Australia where projects meet the appropriate safeguards.
Senator Keneally.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yep, we're good to go. All right. My question is for the Minister for Aged Care.
Order on my right. Hang on. I'm going to stop the clock. I was taking notes and I don't know what happened there, but I'm going to. We're going to start again so I can hear the question. Order on my right. Senator Keneally.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is for the Minister for Aged Care and Senior Australians, Senator Colbeck. Former Prime Minister Abbott says elderly people with COVID-19 should be left to die, quote, while nature takes its course. Why hasn't the Minister for Aged Care and Senior Australians already condemned this heartless remark by this former Liberal Prime Minister?
The Minister for Aged Care and Senior Australians, Senator Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had not heard that comment made by a former Prime Minister.
Order.
But, Mr. President, I do not agree with that. I do not agree with that. I do not agree with that statement, Mr. President. I simply do not agree with it. And, Mr. President, the government's actions demonstrate that our desire to ensure, all of our actions demonstrate our desire to ensure that all senior Australians, COVID positive or not, are treated with respect and get the care that they deserve. Mr. President, there is no way I think anyone in this chamber, on either side, Mr. President, would agree with those comments of former Prime Minister Abbott. Absolutely do not agree, and I would condemn the comments, Mr. President, because that's not what I believe. I don't think that's what anyone in the chamber believes, Mr. President. And our desire is to ensure that all senior Australians, all our planning, all our work has been to ensure that all senior Australians get the care that they deserve and they need, regardless of the COVID-19 circumstances, Mr. President. So I simply do not agree with the statements of the former Prime Minister.
Senator Keneally, a supplementary question.
Mr. President, last month the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, said the view that elderly people should be offered up to COVID-19 is, and I quote, an absolutely amoral, hideous thought. Does the minister agree that Tony Abbott's prepared remarks in his speech last night are amoral and hideous?
Senator Colbeck.
Mr. President, I just condemned the remarks of the former Prime Minister with respect to Australians who have COVID-19, senior Australians or any Australian who has COVID-19. I do not agree with the remarks that were made last night.
Senator Keneally, a final supplementary question.
I note the minister's condemnation of former Prime Minister Abbott's remarks. Does the minister's dismissal of deaths by neglect as a function of the aged care system reflect his view that elderly Australians should be offered up to COVID-19 and left to die while nature takes its course?
Senator Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is really quite offensive that Senator Keneally continues to misrepresent the remarks that I've made in the chamber. I have never done that. I have never dismissed any of the deaths. I have never dismissed any of the deaths, Mr. President. I have consistently offered my condolences to every family who has lost a family member with respect to COVID-19, Mr. President, and the misrepresentation of my comments by the opposition on a number of occasions is dishonest, Mr. President, and it's offensive. All of the efforts of the government right through this pandemic have been focused on providing support to senior Australians through the COVID-19 outbreak. We continue to do that. we continue to do that, Mr. President. And I find the comments and the suggestion of Senator Keneally quite offensive.
Senator Dean Smith.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My question is to the Minister for Foreign Affairs. Can the minister outline the government's support to vulnerable Australians whose return to Australia has been impacted by COVID-19?
The Minister for Foreign Affairs, Senator Payne.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and I thank Senator Smith for his question. We're certainly aware, Mr. President, that many Australians are facing hardship overseas because of the global travel restrictions resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic. Many Australians have been able to return, more than 379,000 since the government advised Australians to reconsider their need to travel overseas. However, about 30,000 people are registered with the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade as being overseas, and of those, about 20,000 have expressed a wish to return. The government, through its network of DFAT consular staff, has been helping those Australians with a focus on people who are most vulnerable because they have no means to support themselves or perhaps have medical conditions. Today, the government has indicated that we will provide further support through an expanded hardship program, which will build on our existing Traveller Emergency Loans program. These are one-off loans which will be available to cover emergency living costs until a person is able to return. Loans will also be available to help with the cost of airline tickets to return to Australia. Loans will be made to the most vulnerable Australians, and applicants will need to meet strict eligibility requirements, including, for instance, being able to show that they have attempted to return to Australia. This financial assistance is available to Australians, much like the Traveller Emergency Loans, as a last resort. For further information, Mr. President, we of course continue to encourage people to visit smarttraveller.gov.com.au. Mr. President, we do understand that many Australians have found themselves in difficult circumstances resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic and travel restrictions globally, as I said. The program we are announcing today will alleviate some of this hardship.
Senator Smith, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can the minister advise what steps the government has taken to protect the health of the Australian community, including those Australians overseas?
Senator Payne.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and I thank Senator Smith for his supplementary question. The government did act early to slow the spread of COVID-19 in Australia by recognising this as a pandemic and restricting entry to the country. Without these measures, taken based on clear health advice, the pandemic would have hit our communities much harder. Around 4,000 Australians continue to return each week. The states and the territories' incoming passenger caps remain in place through the National Cabinet process to protect the Australian community, though, as the Prime Minister has advised, they are being regularly reviewed. The situation in Victoria has illustrated how dangerous a compromised quarantine system can be. Today's national accounts data also underscore the fact that, as well as the tragic loss of life, the economic damage is unparalleled in our recent history. We acknowledge that domestic caps are making it harder for people to return, but we do ask that Australians understand that there is a balance which has to be struck in these circumstances.
Smith, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can the minister advise the Senate what further support and guidance the government is giving to Australians overseas and their families?
Senator Payne.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think it is important to note that this is a global pandemic which is far from over. There is no guarantee about when international travel, for example, will return to some form of normalcy. DFAT continues to work with airlines and other governments to assist Australians in returning, but it is going to be some time before flights are available. And in that context, we encourage Australians seeking to return to stay in close contact with their airlines, their travel agents, to confirm plans as they are able to do so. For those who are unable to obtain flights, we continue to encourage them to ensure they have arrangements in place to allow for a possible extended stay. The support announced by the government today is designed to help the most vulnerable Australians overseas to maintain those arrangements. Australians overseas are also able to follow the advice of local authorities, of course, and continue to monitor the government's advice on Smart Traveller.
Order. Senator Payne. Senator Green.
President. My question is to the Minister for Families and Social Services, Senator Ruston. Australians are living through the worst recession since the Great Depression almost a century ago. Today's national accounts show household spending has collapsed and we have a record high unemployment, with 1 million Australians out of work and 400,000 more expected to lose their job by Christmas. Isn't this the worst time to be cutting back support?
The Minister for Families and Social Services, Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr President, and I thank Senator Green for her question. Well, quite clearly today, the figures that we received indicate the devastating impact that the COVID pandemic has had on Australia, on our economy, but most particularly on the lives and livelihoods of many Australians. And that is why this government has put in place an unprecedented package of supports for Australians. $314 billion have been put into the economy to make sure that Australians have got a cushion by which to support them through this unprecedented pandemic that has hit the entire world but has also impacted Australia. But what we did say at the time this pandemic first hit back in March, and everybody here was in the chamber at the time, was that we needed to put in supports to assist Australians from one side of this pandemic to the other. Clearly, we are not through that pandemic yet, but we all agreed at the time that we would put in place supports, and in my area of social services, those supports related to the coronavirus supplement. We made a decision in July, we announced to people in July that we were going to extend that support past the end of September, because we recognise that Australians are still doing it tough. But across much of the economy, we are starting to see the green shoots of our economies opening up. We are starting to see jobs occur, and it is the responsibility of a responsible government to make sure that we manage the balance between providing increased levels of support to support people in a shallow job market, but at the same time recognising we have to put the incentives back in place so people start engaging with the job market so that they can start getting themselves back into the job market.
Order.
And in addition to that, we also provided assistance through the income-free
Order,
area.
Senator Ruston. Time for the answers expired. Senator Green, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President.
Order.
In March, the Senate gave the minister extraordinary powers to increase support to those on support payments. What is the economic impact of the minister's refusal to use her extraordinary powers to give the 1 million Australians without work the support that they need?
Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr President. And I would point out to Senator Green that I have actually used my powers. There is an instrument laid in this place at the moment to extend the coronavirus supplement from the end of September till the end of December, recognising that the jobs market is still very shallow. But in addition, we do want people to start re-engaging with the jobs market, because we understand that people who are have any form of income in addition to their unemployment benefit are more likely to come off payment. But I find it really quite extraordinary. I mean, it's almost like you guys want to have an each-way bet.
Senator Ruston. Senator Watt, on a point of order.
On relevance, the question was asking the minister what the economic impact of her refusing to use her powers is, and she hasn't addressed that point.
Well, the minister has been addressing the use of the powers, and that was directly relevant. I'm listening to what the minister is saying, and I consider it to be relevant to the question, referring to both the powers and the economic impact, which phrases used in it. Senator Ruston.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, as I was saying, it's almost like those opposite want to have an each-way bet. I mean, in one instance, you're telling us that we need to extend things, and the other side, you're telling us to transition out of it. So, I mean, clearly, those on the other side really don't actually know what you want.
Senator Wong, on a point of order.
Direct relevance, Mr President. After the point of order there was raised, the minister then went to a commentary on the Labor Party. They're in government. They ask the questions.
And
they answer the questions. I'd ask you to ask the minister to return to the question.
It would be easier if there were no interjections and ministers did not take them. That would be easier. The minister has 5 seconds left. I'll encourage her to be directly relevant and there to be no interjections to provide her with bait otherwise.
Thank you very much. I have used my powers.
Senator Green, a final supplementary question.
Why is the minister not only refusing to act but also cutting back support from the economy and the jobs market, making it even harder for the 1 million Australians out of work right now to find jobs and to put food on their table?
Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr President. And as I said to the answer to the primary question that I received from Senator Green, everybody in this chamber was in the chamber in March when we made a decision to put in place a supplement called the Coronavirus Supplement for a period of 6 months. That period of 6 months expires on the 24th of September this year. The decision of this government, the government of which I am the Social Services Minister, made a decision which he announced in the July Economic Financial Update, was that the decision of this government was to extend the supplement past the September deadline until December, and at the same time put in place an increased income-free area which allowed people to earn an additional $300 before any of their payments were cut back.
Order.
In effect, we have said we are transitioning people back into the economy, but we recognise the job market is shallow, and for that reason we have extended the supplement for a further 3 months at the same time as putting an income-free area supplement.
Order. Senator Cormann.
I thank you, Mr. President. I ask that further questions be placed on the notice paper.